everyone. This is Professor DePaul. Welcome back to Site 265 Online. And so I'm going to show you what I want you to do for your discussion section, which is coming up soon. So you're going to log into Blackboard like I've logged into Blackboard. And normally you're going to the weekly guide. If you go into the weekly guide, you're going to see that clicking here, your discussion link is here. This will take you to the assignments page, right? So if you want to submit your discussion, you're going to click on this link, or you could just go to the assignments tab here. So go to either click on here or go to the assignments tab, doesn't matter. If I go to assignments, here are all your assignments, and these red little icon here, this is where you're going to submit all your assignments. So you submit the intro here, the method here, which you should have done already, and the discussion here. Then later, the title, abstract, references, and finally the final revised paper. After you get all the feedback from me, you're going to submit your final paper here. For the discussion section, you're going to submit it at this tab here where it says discussion. I want to go through a couple things in terms of how to write it up. Now, the results section, I have written the results section for you. You see it right here. It says results section. So I've done that for you. You don't have to do anything here. So you don't have to modify this in any way. You're going to use the results section to help you write the discussion. And you're going to put the results section in your final papers. You're just going to copy and paste from this document, this Word document I uploaded. You're going to copy and paste it into your final revised paper. So the results section occurs right after the method section. You have the title, the abstract, the intro, the method, the results, the discussion, right? Then you have the references, and then you're done. So the results section comes right after the method. So you just copy and paste it, stick it into your final paper, which is due at the end of the semester. Right down here, final revised paper. So you don't have to mess with this, but you want to be able to read it and understand what's going on. So let me open it up. So I'm opening up the results section here. So here are the results of the online mental rotation study done by the Psych 265 classes this semester. So hypothesis 1 was not supported. There was no significant difference between men and women in percent of items answered correctly on the mental rotation test. And here is the statistics that I put. Remember, this is a two-group design. So you had men, comparing, this hypothesis is two groups, by the way, men and women. So if I have two groups, they're independent. I'm going to run t-test, independent groups t-test, and that's what I ran. And see this p-value here, p is 0.792. It needs to be less than 0.05 for it to be significant. Now, I was hoping this would be significant, but it wasn't, which means there was no difference between men and women in terms of the number of questions you got correct. Now, there could be a lot of reasons for this. One reason for this is that there was a small sample. I only had 20 people do the test itself. So actually 22, I should say. 22 people did the test. There's 20 degrees of freedom here. That's not a lot of people. That's a very small sample, 22 people. So to not find a difference between men and women with such a small sample, that's common. If I would have made this 100 people or 200 people, would I have found a difference? I don't know. Based on this significance value, this is not even close to 0.05, it's 0.792. Based on how bad the significance level is, chances are I would have found nothing, even if I increased the sample. But I don't know. I would have to run that study to find out, right? Because maybe our sample here is not representative of the general population, and if I ran a bigger sample, I would get a better, more representative sample, and then I could find the difference. I have no idea if that's the case or not, unless I ran the study. But based on this high value, I would say it's probably more likely not to happen than to happen. But once again, I can't really know that until I run a bigger study. The other thing that could have been a problem here is that the test was pretty easy. And I know it's easy because I saw the scores and they were pretty high. So a lot of people scored very high on this test. It was not a super difficult test. I even scored pretty high on this test, and my spatial reasoning is very poor. Like I generally do very bad on these tests. My mathematical skills are very good, but for this spatial rotation stuff, I'm terrible at this, and I did okay on this test. So I would say it's probably too easy, and that's why we had the results that we had. If everyone's scoring very high, there's not going to be a difference between men and women. It was hypothesized that men would do better than women, but the test might have been too easy. So this is what's called a ceiling effect. The test is too easy, and therefore I didn't find the differences because everyone kind of maxed out. They got 8, 9, 10 correct out of 10 items. There was also no significant difference between men and women in total time to complete the mental rotation test. So this is the total time it took you to solve the 10 problems. Once again, there was no difference between men and women. A, the sample was small, right? Only 22 people. B, the test was too easy. So if the test is so easy, everybody's scoring high, and they're not taking a lot of time to score high because it's not that difficult. I would have preferred a more challenging test, but given the fact that we had to do this online, I don't really have many options in the fact that I have to find something online that we can all do. If this was done in a classroom setting or in a lab setting, I'm sure I could have found a much more difficult test where we wouldn't have these ceiling effects where everybody's doing so well that there's not much variation, and therefore there's no significant difference between the groups that I'm testing. So that didn't work out the way I wanted to work out as a class. So hypothesis 1 and hypothesis 2 were not supported. There was also no difference between people who play video games and people who don't with regards to percent of items answered correctly. So here's the two-group test, the independent groups t-test. Now, once again, there weren't a lot of people that played video games in the class. So there were very few people that played video games. It tends to revolve around genders, right? So men tend to play video games more than women, but there weren't that many men in the sample, and therefore there wasn't much going on here in terms of playing video games. If I would have collected a big sample here with an equal number of men and women, would I have found a difference? Probably. The fact here is I only had six women out of 23. There was 23 people in the sample, actually. And I had 6. So 6 men out of the 23. So that's a very small sample. It's kind of hard to find any differences here. So there wasn't any difference. There was also no difference in the total time to solve the problems between people that played video games and people who don't. Once again, that's the same thing I said before. There's only 6 men, and most of the women didn't play video games. If not all the women didn't play video games. So the sample is very small. We need more men in the sample. We need a bigger sample overall to test this. And we need a harder mental rotation test to get rid of the ceiling effect. However, hypothesis 3 was supported. There was a significant negative correlation between hours sleep and the total time to complete the mental rotation test. Negative 0.423, P is 0.044, that's less than 0.05. So that was a significant difference. So what's that saying is if you were sleep deprived, you did more poorly on the test than if you were not sleep deprived. And that makes a lot of sense. So we got one result. We didn't get the other results, probably because of the small sample, but we got a pretty strong result here for sleep. So if you slept longer, you did the test pretty quickly. If you didn't sleep long, you took a lot longer on the test because your cognition was impaired as hypothesized. So this is not great news. It's not terrible news. It's a mixed bag. We have some limitations of the study, and that's what the discussion section is going to really talk about, the limitations. So let's go there. So this statistical stuff you see here, you don't have to worry about this. I wrote this out. You don't have to change any of this stuff. I wrote this out. Leave it the way it is. Put it in your final paper. Let's look at the discussion section now and how to write it. So if you go to your assignments tab here, you're going to have results, which I just showed you, and how to write the discussion of an APA manual. Here are your instructions. So let's click on this. And let's go through the instructions. So this is going to be 4 paragraphs. You're going to write the word discussion at the top, centered, not bold, not italics, right? There's no subheadings. So you'll have subheadings for the method section. There's no subheadings here. First paragraph, restate your hypothesis. So we had 3 hypotheses here. You want to restate them. And then tell me whether you supported or failed to support your hypothesis. Well, if you look at the results section, the first hypothesis was not supported. The second hypothesis was not supported. And the third hypothesis was supported. So out of the 3 hypotheses, you got 1 that was supported, which isn't great, but it's not, I mean, I've had worse. Let's go back to the discussion. So that's what you supported. You failed to support 2 of them. You supported the last one here. State your results in words. So what do your results mean? So you're not going to put the t-values and the p-values in here, but you're going to talk about how there was no difference between men and women in terms of the number of correct items on the mental rotation task and the time it took to complete the mental rotation questions. But there was a difference in terms of there was a significant negative correlation between hours slept, right, hours sleep, and time it took you to complete the mental rotation task. So basically, you can kind of talk about that. The way I'm talking about it in a very casual manner, you can state those results here in the first paragraph. So you can state your hypotheses, say that you failed to support 2 of them, you supported the third one, and then give your results. So you found no difference between men and women, but you did find a difference, a significant correlation between hours slept and time it takes you to complete the task. And that's basically it. So this is basically 3 or 4 sentences for the first paragraph. Paragraph 2, how do your findings relate to past research, especially the stuff in your introduction? So you did the literature review for your introduction, right? How do our results in our class here relate to past research? Were they similar or different? Well, I can tell you based on this, we found differences between the gender, the effect of gender, male versus female, and success on the mental rotation test. That's different than what other people found, right? So you want to state that here. The hours slept to the time it takes to complete the task, that's very similar to a lot of research. So state that as well, right? And if you find research that this is different from, then tell me this research is the results that we had in our current study was different than the study conducted by so-and-so who found that men and women showed significant differences. So cite the study and tell me that it's different. A lot of these studies are in your introduction. So go back to your introduction, find some of the studies, and tell me, are our results in our class different from what you found in the studies you used in the introduction? So that's paragraph 2. So there's, another 3 or 4 sentences. Paragraph 3. Now this is where you're going to explain it. If you fail to support your hypothesis, explain why. I kind of just explained why, right? Ceiling effect, small sample. Maybe the sample is not representative of the general population. But there's a lot of reasons why. The task was too easy, which led to the ceiling effect, right? What were the limitations of the study? There were tons of limitations, right? It was done in a non-controlled environment. So you did the study at home, probably. That's not ideal. I would rather you do the study in the lab where I have complete control over what you're doing. You're doing it at home. Did you do the study more than once? I don't know. Maybe you did the study 5 times until you got a really good score, and then you said, oh, this is my score. I have no control over that. If you actually did the study once or you did the study multiple times. I don't know how many times you practiced the problems before you reported your scores. I'm hoping you did it one time, but I have no control. I have no knowledge of this. So there's lots of limitations with doing a study online in a non-controlled environment, right? This was not done in a lab. Maybe you did the study and someone distracted you during the study. Maybe you practiced before you did the study. I don't know. But there's lack of control here, and so those are several limitations. The other limitations are small sample, big limitation of the study, right? Are there problems with internal or external validity? So internal validity is cause and effect. Can we draw cause and effect conclusions from the study? No. Why not? Well, for one, we don't have random assignment to conditions. So if you do not have random assignment to the conditions, you cannot draw cause and effect conclusions, and therefore you're going to have a limitation with internal validity. We didn't do random assignment here. We had men versus women. We didn't randomly assign people to either be males or females. So therefore, this is not a controlled experiment. There's no random assignment, and it becomes like a correlational study. So therefore, there's lots of problems with internal validity. We cannot draw cause and effect conclusions from the study. External validity is how easy you can generalize the results of your study to the general population. So is our class sample representative of the general population of males and females, maybe male and female college students in the entire country, in the US? Is our sample representative of male and female college students in the US? Or male, female, non-binary? I should say all college students, right? In the US? No. Why not? Well, I think that there's a wide variety of students that come to BMCC. Are they representative of the entire population? No. Just like students at other colleges are not representative of the entire population. There's always limitations in terms of your sample. For instance, BMCC students tend to be a little bit older than traditional college students. So right there, the age range could make the sample not as representative of the general population of college students. That's one thing, right? There's a variety of other factors that go into it too. It's really hard to have good external validity with a sample of 20 people or 23 people total. Paragraph 4, what are the real world implications of the results of the study? Well, they're limited here, but they do tell you about sleep and performance on visual spatial tasks. So if you haven't heard enough about sleep being good for you, this is a result. Even with a small sample, we found this result that shows that sleep is important. So you need to get your sleep. And if sleep is important for visual spatial abilities, it's important for other cognitive abilities as well. And the one thing we know about BMCC students is they lack sleep. Probably because they're working too much. They have family, they have jobs, they have school, they have everything happening at once, right? And so where do you cut? You need to find time in the day for everything. Well, that time comes from the time you need to sleep. And so you start cutting back on that, but that's impairing your cognitive performance. That's having a negative effect. And this study, as flawed as it is showing that. And how would you address the limitations of the study if you were conducting future research? So what would you do to make it better? There's a lot of ways. I told you about all the limitations, right? Sample size, test is too easy, leads to what's called the ceiling effect. Sample may not be representative. How do you fix that stuff? So if you were to do this study again, you were trying to publish the study, what could you do better? Give me some ideas here. Think about it. Give me some ideas here. So that's basically the discussion. It should be 4 paragraphs, should answer all these questions, and I'm hoping that sort of clarifies things moving forward. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, office hours, etc. I'm available, and hope